So Michael B. Jordan wins Best Actor for Sinners, and it was pretty much at that moment I decided, okay, I'm gonna give this movie a shot. I'll go ahead and watch it. When it came out, I didn't get a chance to go see it. Life was busy, but also like it's a vampire movie. It's kind of like horror. It's not really like my alley, even though I did grow up watching a lot of like creature feature monsters. And so that pretty much was the reason why I decided, okay, I'll go ahead and give this a shot. But what I do remember is that when this movie came out, so many people, right, from church Christians that I knew were like, oh my gosh, this movie is so terrible, it's sacrilegious, right? Like it's full blown demonic. We shouldn't go watch that. Christians shouldn't go watch that. And after watching the movie, um, I would have to say that I think while there are elements where you can say like, okay, I understand that. I think the propaganda around it, specifically from my fellow Christians, was wildly exaggerated. This was a solid movie. I think it's a solid movie. I could give it a 7. Could give it an 8. Um, do I think this is genre defying as people and society is trying to make it out to be? No, I don't. I think it's really, really good though. I can see why Michael B. Jordan was nominated and eventually won Best Actor because I think his acting, playing dual roles here, I think it's like top tier. It's phenomenal. Really, really good. I think Michael B. Jordan has always, though, been a good actor. Every movie that he's ever been in, I think he has always been a positive in that movie. Never a negative. I've never seen a movie with him and I've been like, man, everybody else was really good, but Michael B. Jordan sucked. But this was not as sacrilegious, even like demonic and everything that so many people who I knew, even people like online, like influencers, right? Christian influencers, like there was nowhere near that. I have definitely seen worse. Back in my day, I watched some horror, some pretty bad horror too. Saw The Exorcist when I was like 16 years old. Uh, and there's definitely a lot of sacrilegious stuff in that movie in comparison to this, which is nowhere near, right? Things that happen like in The Exorcist that you could consider, sacrilegious and all that. But there wasn't anything like that. And I think this just goes to the bigger point. And I think I'm going to make a separate video on this. But as Christians, we need to stop labeling and attaching things to movies, music, or any medium, right? We need to stop attaching things that aren't there. That they're just not there. And the reason why is, again, I think I'm definitely gonna make a video now that I'm thinking out loud here. But it's like, one, we look dumb. We look stupid when we attach things and say, oh, it was this and it was that and it was this and that, and then you watch it and you're like, it's none of that. People go and watch it and they're just like, it's none of what you told me it was going to be. Um, like we just need to stop. We look dumb when we do stuff like this. And the world, right? The world is watching. They're listening to us. They're hearing our, the things that we say about, you know, Hollywood music. Like they're paying attention, whether they acknowledge it or not, right? They'll never acknowledge it from like a main stage. You'll never hear, them talking about Christianity at the Oscars. But I think it's foolish for us to think that they don't know what we think about them, right? That they don't know what we think about their movies, about about music, right? Like I think it's foolish for us to think that way. And so when we're going around telling everybody how this movie's demonic and it's it's this and that and Christians, and it's like it's way blown out of proportion, way blown out, and we look foolish when we do stuff like that, because this movie wasn't that. Now, obviously, elements of horror. We're dealing with vampires. Obviously, elements of blood and gore. Again, you're dealing with vampires and people fighting vampires and vampires killing people. It's going to be blood. It's going to be gore. Yes, there's cursing. It's a rated R movie, so there were some elements of sex in it. Yes. Um, but again, those things to me, I'm like, okay, this is like expected in the sense, like I'm expecting this. I know what I'm signing up for when I'm watching this movie. So there there wasn't anything, at least from my perspective, which I think is a very normal perspective. There wasn't anything in here that shocked me, that I was like, oh my gosh, this is so disturbing to my soul and so disturbing to, my relationship with Christ. It's like there's none of that. None of that. And I have seen some vampire movies that very much talked about God and leaning towards God, even mentions of like Christ in it. There was nothing like that in this movie. There's only one scene that takes place towards the very end where the main vampire and the other vampires that are being controlled, basically, because it seems like there's like a hive mind there, they recite the Lord's Prayer. And if you want to say that's sacrilege, if you want to say they're taking something, from the Bible and perverting it, right? Right? If you want to say that and that's where your stance, okay, like maybe I'll meet you halfway there if that's your belief. But that scene in context and totality, that's not what I think is happening there. And if you want to go with the whole idea of, oh, well, they're mocking the Bible and Christ at this moment, okay, I'll grant you that. I'll say that they're mocking it. But if you've seen the movie, you know exactly what happens next to that character, right after that exact moment. And so if we're going to say that it's a mockery, then we also have to say that the mockery, spoiler alert, caused that person to die. Because that's exactly what happens literally in the next scene right after, them reciting the Lord's Prayer. The main villain dies, gets killed. So good still won in that sense, right? So we just can't attach things that just aren't there. And this movie didn't have anything like that. Was it my cup of taste as far as like film goes? Again, I don't think it's as great as everybody was making it out to be. I think some of the acting was really well done, but I'm going to critique it like I critique any other movie. And one of my biggest frustrations of this movie was understanding the time period that it was in and understanding that we're predominantly following African Americans and how that in that time period that they talked. There were moments in which I just couldn't understand what the characters were saying, right? And you can go and like, well, that's what makes it real and everything. It's like, yeah, but it's also a movie, right? It's a movie. I should be able to understand what the characters are saying because the characters, there's plot points, there's development, right? I should be able to understand that. And if I just can't simply understand that because the actors and their accents and how they're, pronouncing certain words takes away from that, then I think that hinders it. This is why I don't think this movie is like top tier. I wouldn't call it that. And so that was like my biggest gripe, like with the movie, that there were just portions of it where I'm just like, I do not understand what this character is saying. Like I have to literally rewind it to then, okay, I think they're pronouncing this and this is what they're saying. That was my biggest gripe, like with the movie, with that. I think also when it comes to horror movies, right, there's always like that element of, why are people making this decision? That's really stupid. that happens in this movie. The regular tropes of like horror. Like, okay, bunch of bad people outside. Well, why am I staying here? Why am I doing this? Why did I make this decision? Those are here in this movie, and they're present. So again, I think it's good. I think this is probably the best vampire movie that's probably been made from a drama. It was dramatic, right? It was dramatic horror, which I would say I like that, right? It was very it's drama driven, not so much action, not so much, CGI or anything like that. Like we're really invested in the characters and their journey and in who they are, which is to my critique, which is okay, if you're going to give me the drama and I'm supposed to be listening, I better be able to understand what your characters are saying. Like that can't take me out of it, which it did throughout the entire movie. Not just like one part of the movie, but it was literally throughout the entire movie where there were moments I was like, I didn't catch what this character just said because I couldn't understand them. Now, while I don't think this is like, again, like the best movie, right, or this big, huge cultural thing that people want to make it out to be, that's just my opinion. I do understand from this point there's one aspect of this movie that I think is the reason why it is so elevated in people's minds, and I can understand that is the reason, which is the music. The music is just phenomenal. It is top tier, like top tier, and not only is it great because obviously the music, but it incorporates basically what we're watching. There are actual elements of like cultural things, right, that take place in the movie that are mimicked through the music. Um, and I think that's a testimony, like that's a testament to the movie itself, because the movie itself really has like an ensemble of different people, but also different cultures are present. Primarily, the big three that stick out to me is obviously the African American culture, right? Then there's the Chinese culture that's present. There's little elements of that, and then there's Irish, right, culture that's present, right? Music that's present from all three, right, of those different cultures. Um, that is throughout the movie. Not so much the Chinese, though. There's a little bit of elements here and there, but definitely like the Irish, right, right, folklore music that's present throughout the movie. It's a big part of the movie. And so that, right, from that within itself, the music aspect of it, I 100% understand how that elevates this movie, that people think like, oh my God, it's just this great, awesome thing. And I would agree with that. The problem is I think the rest of the movie is just kind of average. I can't remember. I believe I'm probably gonna butcher his name. Ludwig Göransson, I think that's his name, right? The composer for Sinners, the guy who's making like who made all the music, and I think is tremendous. We got to start talking about this guy because he won the Academy Award, right? Uh, for the music throughout Sinners, and I think this is like his second or third Oscar. Homeboy's up there with like John Williams, Hans Zimmer. He's not getting like the love. I think this is gonna give him that love, but it's time to start talking about him as being a powerhouse when it comes to uh, cinema sound, cinema music, all the stuff that that encompasses what he does, being the composer. I mean, top tier. And so again, the music I think elevates this movie and gives it a couple of points higher than what I would probably give it normally. From the Christian perspective, right? Being that this is a faith-based channel, um, yeah, be expecting gore, be expecting cursing, some elements of sex, no full-blown nudity or anything, but elements of sex, gore, violence. But if you did not watch this movie because you were told that, you know, this movie basically is an affront to God, it commits sacrilegious things and it mocks Christ, it mocks God, which I know people were saying it did. It does not at all. We we can't be liars about this. Um, and so those are my thoughts. I appreciate you guys. As always, I may go and watch some of the other Academy Award movies that were listed out there, but we'll see. But I appreciate you guys. Peace.